and the desire to be number 3 and aspiring to be number 1 and Vishiguru, this process of translating and globalizing all the local, regional, and national literature, of course we know about Rabindranath Tagore and them, but there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of them more that will make the real impact. And it is this, perhaps, as a new initiative that the country and the academia would like to take up, because you did something wonderful very recently in relation to G20, where you convened discussion and dialogue among the global South. You need a similar approach in terms of globalizing literature further. And I think I will leave it at that. The potential that India has of unleashing these new technologies that can make learning and reading and the audio books, I think nobody else can do better than you. So you must seize the opportunity to have this across the globe. And I'm sure in the many languages, there will be millions and billions of people that will profit, and together with it, the soft power that would be exercised. Of course, in all this, you have the role of governments, etc., that is very, very important. Writers, authors, all are interlinked and intertwined in this. So have we really arrived at that global literature as was posed through that question? This is what we are to answer, through the panel discussion. I contend that the journey has begun and great strides have been made. There's a lot more that we need to fathom so that we can intensify and heighten this particular outcome. Thank you very much. We have the distinguished panelists who will, I'm sure, add more to what has been said. Thank you for listening. Dhanyavad.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency, Kamalesh Shahi Prakash from Fiji. Just a quick word, if you're a young person, please come and sit in front and leave the seats for some more elderly people. Please just come and sit in front if to release a few more seats. Thank you, because there are people coming in and who, older ones will need seats, you see. So, okay, as His Excellency, if I may call you Kamalesh, as Kamalesh said, it's a huge undertaking, it's a very ambitious one, this globalization of literature amongst the globalizations of the other things that are going on, the economies and so on. However, it is a double-edged sword, and there are certain problems I would like to highlight in various of the questions that I'm going to pose to the panelists. For instance, if you make every sort of literature, if you try and make it acceptable to everyone in the world, will you find certain nations objecting to things? For instance, if I wanted to write a book, Appreciation of Wine, I would not be able to sell that in Saudi Arabia. But that's just a flippant thing. What I mean is that different societies move at different rates, and you may find that when you globalize literature, you lose certain, you go down to a lowest common denominator, and you may lose certain bits of individuality. I don't know. The jury is out. I would like my panelists to discuss, but that'll be later. That'll be later. First of all, I would like each of you to tell me what the phrase, the term, global literature means to you. Could we perhaps start with Mami Yamada, who's here from Japan? What is global literature? What does that term mean?
Hello. Konnichiwa in Japanese language. And I actually, okay, let me just stand up. Just like you do namaste like this, we bow. So, Japanese way, konnichiwa. Sorry, we are lost. Actually, we came a little late. I'm so sorry about that. Actually, we were totally lost in the middle of the building. But we asked more than 30, 40 people, and nobody knew where we should go. So anyway, I'm here. So my name is Mami Yamada. It's a very unusual name, isn't it? Mami. It's a Japanese girl's name. Yeah, I know. It's your mother's brother's wife, isn't it? Auntie. or mother in English, and all over the world.
So
it's a very feminine
should I
type of-
introduce you first? I think.
please do.
Yeah, I should.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's Mami Yamada. She is an accomplished writer who has delved into a wide range of fiction and non-fiction. She has published over 20 books in Japanese, including several bestsellers, some of which have been translated into English and Chinese. Yamada is renowned for her meticulous and grassroots research approach, with a particular focus on two areas, Indian studies and the Cobra breakout, a significant prisoner of war escape during World War II. She holds a PhD in modern Japanese history and gender studies. Currently, she serves as the director for the Japan-India Association and holds the position of visiting assistant professor at IIT Hyderabad. So it's your turn now.
Thank you. So how many minutes am I supposed to speak?
Well,
Like-
there are lots of us, so maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes
Okay,
max.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'm
Sorry
not so
about that.
talkative.
I'm trying to give everyone airtime here.
4 to 5 minutes, 7 and
Yes. We have a mathematician here, so.
So your question was, what is the
Well, yeah. What does global literature mean to you? That's the
global
phrase. 'Cause-
literature?
Yes.
When I first was informed about this today's theme, globalization and literature all together. So I thought, like, what is this? Is it even possible?
That was my next question. Is it actually possible?
Yeah.
Please go
So
on.
because it's like a very interesting combination. Well, I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. People make mistakes, okay? We are not perfect. And I'm always making mistakes, just like I did a few minutes ago. Well, for me, globalization is always associated with, trade and technology, that side of the world. That's what I have believed. And I think it's written like that in a dictionary too, no? Something like that, similar. But literature is nothing, it's not something for money or trade or technology. Of course, we have to make some suitable amount of money from making books and things, but still, it's not a major thing. So at the end, if I get some money, I'm lucky. But so actually, I thought that you have in India the proverb or something saying, Saraswati does not go to Saraswati and Lakshmi do not go together. Yeah, isn't it? But that is something which came up to my mind. But maybe I'm wrong, and then the maybe meaning of the literature or maybe meaning of, what was it? Globalization is also changing. So maybe I have to change. We have to maybe change the proverb from the original one to Saraswati and Lakshmi have to go together from now on. It's more like modern, isn't it? It's not a good idea to let two wonderful ladies, fight or go alone, right? So, yeah, sorry. I'm a little confused, but
No, I think that's very clear.
That's-
But would you say that the commercialization of literature, as will happen inevitably as you globalize, would that affect the literature in some way? Would it degrade it in some form?
Well,
Just your opinion. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's what you might speculate.
so okay. Well, maybe it's not. This one could be my answer. Well, like if it is globalization, it should be made quickly, and it should be, decided right now. That's a good thing in today's world, isn't it? Like if you are working on the computer and doing IT and all those things, has to be quick. But the big difference is in literature is it's such a time-consuming thing. From the time you take it, like if it is book, you read it, and then maybe question is written there, but answer is not written there. It's not. So it's like a journey of your, inner mind. And you have to read, and it takes time. Maybe someone will read it very quickly, but someone will take it maybe a week, a month, or maybe lifetime to really complete the, and then at the end, there is no answer given, maybe sometimes. But you have to find the answer yourself. It's a big difference from today's world, isn't it? Like today, if you read the game strategy book, for example, question is written and immediately answer is written. So you don't have to think about it because answer is given just immediately. So that is a real big difference between two things. And,
that is, yes, that's certainly one of the problems. Maria Puri from Poland, what is your opinion on all this? Or first of all, what does the phrase global literature mean to you?
Take the opportunity to introduce her, yeah. So that's Maria Puri. She is an independent scholar and translator with degrees in Indology and Islamic studies. Her publications include a book on Delhi in Polish, Jaisi, that's Jagieski, yeah, W Delhi, that is Everyday Life in Delhi, that's easier. And a number of translations of Polish literary works into Hindi, which include a selection of Adam Jagieski's poem, Parai Sundarta Mein, Sahitya Academy, 2011, with Dr. Monica, and stories by Olga, and a novel by Andres, that is Galtiskya Ki Kathaएं. At present, she is working with Dr. Monica on the translation of Gitanjali Shree's novel, Ret Samadhi, into Polish. Yeah. So it's your turn, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm coughing a bit. Is it on? Yeah. It's on. Basically, I'm...
It is on, it's just hold.
Yeah, so thank you for a very generous introduction. Basically, I'm a translator, but I'm going to answer the a question about what is called global literature in my understanding. Before taking part, yesterday and the day before yesterday and for a few days before that, I was wondering what actually is meant by the title of this panel. Globalization, of course, we know, but what is global literature? So, first thing which comes to mind to a person like me who is a translator and an academic would be to see, I know, of course, of the term world literature, yeah? But what about global literature? So I looked up on the internet because, of course, internet gives you all the answers. And I have found that now global literature is actually a course, which English departments offer for different type of literature. So, for example, Chicago University offers this as a literature which is beyond US, not contextualized in US. So Asia, Pacific, whatever comes outside. In British universities, I looked at a few, they say literature which is not placed in Britain, so again the same thing. So I understood that the global literature is a literature written by the other, yeah? It's literature written by somebody else but not us. So now let's change the point of view. Suppose we stand in Poland or in India. What is global literature for us? Something which other people write, yeah? So I was thinking, that global literature is a portmanteau in war, and by definition itself, it includes all the literatures, whether they are visible or not, whether they are translated or not, they are part of global literature. Now, as a translator, my aim is to make the invisible literature visible on the world scene, on the global scene. Now, let's look at Hindi. Yeah, Hindi, there were two events which sort of, in the last 12 months, yeah, more or less, which brought Hindi literature very much onto the global scene. In 2022, Gitanjali Shree's book, Red Samadhi, got the International Booker Prize, yeah, so immediately publishers from all over the world wanted to translate it. Halanki, it was already translated into French 2 years earlier, but that made no dent at all, yeah? I mean, it appeared as if it didn't exist. Then in March 2023, Vinod Kumar Shukla received a PEN Award. It's a PEN Award, it's an award given for a lifetime achievement in letters by American Pen Club. So you see, these two things have brought suddenly Hindi literature into the global scene. Now what happened? I, as a translator, can already see that there is a lot of go and take. Lots of people are interested in translating literature from India. Suddenly, we got an offer to translate this book, Red Samadhi, for a mainstream publisher in Poland. It has never happened before. There is only one book, one novel translated from Hindi into Polish, which is Mela Anchal, and that was a work of a dedicated, almost crazy translator. So global literature for me is the totality of all literatures, yeah? And we have to make them visible as translators, yeah.
So in a way, it involves you globalizing that literature by translating it into other languages that might have bigger markets outside the country of origin.
You see, is it on? Yeah. Okay, you see, every translator is a cultural ambassador, you know? For translated books to reach public readership, we have to be, we have to choose, we have to poke, we have to convince people to take certain books. Yes, it's very, very uphill job. I also translate Polish literature into Hindi and then Hindi literature into English and Polish. So for example, when we had these 3 projects of Hindi literature, which we started for, what we did, my friend Monika Prowarczyk and me, some we translated together, some with somebody else, we looked for sponsors not to support us financially, but we wanted publishers which would keep the book on the reading list, on their catalog, will reprint it for a while. So one book was published by Sahitya Akademi, that was a selection of poems, yeah, and the other books, which were novels, fiction, were published by Rajkamal Prakashan, which is again a mainstream publisher. We didn't want to go to a niche publisher when you want a book which you have heard about, cannot find it. You look on the net and then you cannot contact the publisher. Rajkamal, the minute, Olga Tokarczuk. Actually, one of the books is a 3-story collection of Olga Tokarczuk, who received a Nobel Prize for literature in 2019, yeah, Polish writer Olga Tokarczuk. We have translated her stories into Hindi in 2014, you know. It was published. The publisher reprinted the stories when she got the Nobel Prize. So basically, you know, we are ambassadors, we try, but we have very limited resources, yeah? As you know.
Oscar Pujol, next up, also a translator. You've done a huge amount of work making Indian books, sort of with your Sanskrit. We'll come to translating, making them more available. Perhaps we'd like an introduction to you first.
Thank you so much. Even to my surprise, Oscar Pujol studied Sanskrit BA MA at Banaras Hindu University, where he took his PhD with the addition of Samarth Pada of Tantra Pradipa, a manuscript on Sanskrit grammar. He has published several books and translations from Sanskrit. He has also published the Sanskrit Catalan Dictionary, 2005, and the Sanskrit Spanish Dictionary, 2019, of 64,000 words, which for the first time includes the etymologies of contemporary philology and those of the Indian grammarians. In 2002, he helped in establishing Casa Asia Barcelona. He founded in 2007 the Instituto Cervantes of New Delhi. So it's your turn, sir. Yeah.
Oscar,
thank you so much.
What does global literature mean to you?
Well, first of all, I think that literature has, in its own essence, a vocation to be global. Literature has a vocation to be universal. And that we can see because we all enjoy Shakespeare. We all enjoy Cervantes, Don Quixote, and I would like to say that we have here an agent of globalization in the person of Viva Maurya. She's the translator of Don Quixote into Hindi, the first direct translation from Hindi into Spanish. And those are the people like Linda has here also, who are making one, Spanish literature available in India, and the other one, Indian literature available in the West. So the first thing I would say, all literature has a vocation to be global. And that's why we read Shakespeare, even being an Spaniard, and we enjoy Shakespeare. You enjoy Shakespeare being Indians. You enjoy Don Quixote being Indians. We enjoy Kalidasa. So that's there. That's the beginning. I think that's important to keep in mind. But as Maria said, Maria was her name, I think what now is understood for global literature, basically it is world literature translated into English. That's what we call today global literature, basically. In the faculties and universities, you say to yourself, no, there is a long way to have a real global literature. And we just began to walk that way. Keeping in mind, as I said, that literature is by nature universal. It's universal because it touches human emotions. And human emotions, as Abhinavagupta, the great Indian philosopher, knew, are universal. He listed 8 kind of universal emotions that we can all relate, whether we are Muslims, Hindus, Christians, Indians, Chinese, Polish, or Spaniards. And I think that's there. Then we have all the particularities that conform a specific. And there, maybe you need footnotes. But what I insist to say, what is globalization actually? What is happening in the world now? Globalization means that one world that now is Anglo-centric is coming to its end. And we must be very careful for that. I don't see globalization as a position where a single language will be hegemonic like English is now. I don't see that. I see globalization as huge blocks of languages, and to make global literature a real success, the key is what Maria says, the translators. Translators are essential. Dictionaries are essentials. And translating from Indian languages into European languages is very complicated. And also the other way around. Translating from Indian languages into European languages is a much more difficult enterprise than what we know. I always said what Rushdie said about 20 years ago, maybe, and we all love Rushdie, especially because he's such a defender of free speech. But what he said, that Indian writing in Indian languages was not up to the level, and he said that only Indian literature in English was good, I think he has no authority to say that for a single reason. How much literature in Indian languages he can read? How many good translations of Upanishads, novels in Indian languages are done into English or into French or into Spanish? Very few. So what I mean to say, and I will be ending by that, that the real globalization, for me, real global literature is literature that is written in different languages and can be read across many other different languages and not only in English. I would like to be able to read Sinhalese literature in Spanish that doesn't come through English, from Sinhalese, English, Spanish. And that is a thing, when we reach that point, and I do believe we are going to reach it eventually, because globalization is a fact, then we will be able to speak of a real global literature. And to end, one thing. One problem with globalization we are having, we live in a world obsessed by numbers. And that's a very dangerous thing. We live in the kingdom of quantity. You will see everybody speaks of records. So many people here, so many people there. I have so many millions. My institute is the one who has the biggest number of students of all the Cervantes. It's true. We always speak of numbers. Nobody seems to care anymore about quality. Why? I don't know. And somebody was asking, is commercialization? Commercialization, of course, it is a big risk. In Spain, it was done, I will conclude, we have International Book Day in Spain is a big celebration. Okay, it's St. George, and there it's established celebration. Back in 87, it was done one survey. What were the best sellers in Spain in the year 87 during Book Day? And you see the same bestsellers 30 years ago, 30 years ahead, and the kind of authors that were read in the 80s in Spain were García Márquez, were Umberto Eco, were high writers, which were both popular and had a success in the critics. Now you see the kind of books that we are reading, and there is not a major great literary author, but there are very big sellers author instead of quality. And I think that's something that we must ponder. There are two ways of globalization. One is the McBurger globalization, okay? We just keep eating, we just keep consuming. And the other will be the really fruitful globalization, where each one of us becomes a multicultural agent, a multicultural subject. That is a person, and we have many of them here, a person who is able to live in this world knowing the cultural codes of different cultures. Maria is living in Delhi. She's like an Indian, and you see dresses. She's Polish. She knows how to behave in Poland. She's European. And many of you who are Indians, who live in the States and know the Western codes and the Indian codes. So, and I finish here, for me, truly globalization will only happen when we are not just citizens of a specific culture, when we also interiorize the cultural codes of other cultures and become a real multicultural subjects. Then we'll open the door for a truly globalized literature and globalized world.
Are there any books that are untranslatable? Just a quick question for the two of you.
Okay. See, actually, there are no books which cannot be translated, because you can always translate everything. The only problem is whether you can have the spirit of the book rendered into another cultural milieu in a truthful manner. But then, on the other hand, there are a number of, but you see, I'm speaking as a translator who chooses books for translation. I don't translate books which I don't like, or people, I don't translate as a professional who has to do it, you know, like so many books a month or a year or whatever. So you see, there are certain books which are so deeply, how should I say, contextualized, you know, sometimes that it is difficult to translate. I will give you an example from Shakespeare, and I'm quoting here another, you know, Poland. In Polish, we have around 10, 15 translations of each play of Shakespeare, yeah? So every generation produces its new translation. It is not archaic, it's you know, like it's contemporary.
Current.
So it changes, you know, like one of the essayists, the Polish essayist, Kot, has written, you know, Shakespeare a contemporary. So, you know, small languages like Polish probably, or other languages, they can have the same book translated many times and adopted to the language. But if you, how should I say, I have met lots of people in UK and US who cannot relate to Shakespeare. He said, too archaic, we feel very, even Austen, dated. This, you know what I mean? So you see, the books are not every book can be translated. That's not a problem. The only choice is whether it will sell, whether it's the best book to be chosen as an ambassador of the said culture. Yeah, you have to make first a number of books which are, you know, sort of promoting the literature culture, hook on people on Polish literature in Hindi, yeah, and then move on, yeah?
Thank you. Thank you. No, it is, because essentially that again has to do with globalization. By choosing the books that you feel can be more absorbed by other people, those are the ones that are more global within inverted commas. Okay, our final member of our panel, I'm sorry, we have a very big panel, is from Nepal, Tulasi Devasa, and we'll have an introduction first.
तुलसी दिवस नेपाली भाषा के प्रख्यात लेखक और लोक गीतकार हैं। प्रतिष्ठित राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय पत्र पत्रिकाओं में आपकी कई कविताएं और लेखों सहित नेपाली संस्कृति, लोकगीत और साहित्य पर पुस्तकें प्रकाशित हैं। आपने नेपाल में यूनेस्को के लिए द इंटेलिजिबल कल्चरल हेरिटेज ऑफ नेपाल फ्यूचर डायरेक्शंस का समन्वयन और सहलेखन किया है। आपने लोकगीत और लोक जीवन अध्ययन पर 16 पुस्तकें और 6 डीवीडी का निर्देशन और संपादन भी किया है। आपने राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कई साहित्यिक संगोष्ठियों, सम्मेलनों और उत्सवों में सहभागिता की है। Tulasi Devasa is an eminent Nepali writer and folklorist. He has published numerous poems and articles in prestigious national and international magazines and journals, besides books on Nepali culture, folklore, and literature. He has coordinated and co-authored The Intangible Cultural Heritage of Nepal, Future Directions for UNESCO. He has also directed and edited 16 books and 6 DVDs on folklore and folk life studies. He has participated in several literary seminars, conferences, and festivals on national and international level. We welcome you, sir. It's your turn.
As a poet, to me, life is more unknown than known, more unexpected than expected, more on thought than thought, more unplanned than planned. This is why life is worthy to live. So I have been attending a lot of international conferences on literature, culture, across the globe, more than 85 countries. My articles or my poems have been translated into more than 35 major languages of the world. But so far, the concept or the meaning of globalization or global or oral literature, what we have been using. The concept of one way and another, I feel, is directly related to British colonial, a kind of concept earlier. Because they have their kind of colony, a lot of in Asia, in South America, Europe, even Africa. But anyway, to me, when I saw that my poems have been translated, and I recited my poem in English in America, and I was shocked to see and know it was not communicable to them, though it was translated into English. So there's a problematics that I have been through. I mean, the feeling or the intense emotions directly related to poetry one way and other is related to culture or the cultural communication, cultural expression, which is one way and other related to poetry, related to even other forms of literature we have. And the same poem, what I recited in America, I recited in Japan. It was received some about 50 and 60% of the Japanese, my audience there. And I came to Bangladesh and India. They don't need any translation. I recite my poem in Nepali and it was communicable to them. So how do you conceptualize the concept of globalization? The concept of, when you say global, what that really means too. This is very, he has raised some of, through their experience being a translator, being a poet, being a writer. All right, I have my kind of feeling, is literature, one way or another, directly related to the culture of people. You can translate
You can't translate your feeling and emotion. Sometimes, how you react, with the different background, socio-cultural background of the people, the same image have different kind of impression, a different kind of way of communicating. Even you speak English, Spanish friend, or the Polish friend, and there are some even Japanese, even Fiji people, even Nepalese, The English will be localized already. British English has been localized here. They pronounce differently. Or sometimes make use of the same word in some different context and give different meaning. That has been my experience. That has been almost so, the concept of global, the concept of all, one way and other directly related to the human kind of feeling and human kind of, communication and expression. And each and every language of different nations have their own way of communication. So the way the British communicate, Americans communicate differently. I have been to Britain, I have been to in America. They speak different with different intonation, different way of communication. That has to do directly something with their soil and their culture, living there and mix up with other culture and people. So one way and another, the dictionary meaning of global or world literature, I don't agree with all those kind of things. You understand what I mean? I don't want to repeat, I don't want to, yes, there are some kind of the way that we have conceptualized, the way that we have been using words, we have to be a little bit careful and see. Three of us, four of us, different ways. Look at him, look at him, look at him, look at me. We four are putting as the suit but different, and we are different. We have to be very careful to make use of the words and try to give the traditional kind of meaning. What I mean is the meaning, the area, the concept will be changed. It's not only in terms of time, more is in terms of social, cultural value system, what we have with us. So we have to be careful to make use of these kinds of words and try to, impose others. I'm against of this kind of concept, imposing others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tulasi. Okay, so we've kind of established here that in order to make literature, to take literature onto the global stage, you need very good translators. You also need the book or the piece of writing needs to be such that it can represent that civilization, that culture in a fairly appropriate way. So there may be some books that are, if you like, better or more suitable for globalization than others. Now, look at this from the point of view of the writer. Since I'm a writer, I'll talk about that bit. Is there a great temptation then for a writer to play to the audience, to write a book about the big picture, the war in Sri Lanka, the starvation in southern Sudan, something big, a big theme? And isn't by definition, the definition of great literature, it's always about the particular, not the general, about the small, not the large, about the forensic, not the telescopic. I don't know. I'd like to put this to each of you. Kamalesh, would you have any thoughts on that? In other words, is there a danger that writing will adapt itself in this commercial way to be more acceptable in a global sense?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very interesting question. Simple, yet very complex in terms of the responses that you could have around this. And again, it goes back to our own different feelings and emotions and how we think, the different perspectives. And it also has to do with the variety, the diversity, the interest and others that we all have from different cultures. Many of our interests and persuasions and so forth are very country-specific or culture-specific and so forth. So that is one side of the coin. On the other side, whether it's the wars in Sri Lanka or Ukraine or the famine elsewhere or something more drastic, nuclear type scenario or the COVID, whether it be the pandemic and so forth, there is a substantial amount of enlightenment in the world, and there are also a lot of people out there looking for just these kinds of themes. So whether it be the micro or the macro, the small things or the big things, there is sufficient interest out there in people wanting these kinds of literature around the globe. And this is where the writers, the publishers and so forth are very smart in scanning the taste and preferences in the readership in the different contexts, such that they get all those signals and get your book out on that matter, not only in Sri Lanka or in that part of Africa where the famine is, etc., but in all those corners of the globe where it will make sense for them. Of course, there's a commercial side of these things, which especially the publishers are particularly good at. And the publishers are particularly good in certain publishers, putting aside certain budgets to market and to take those books out there, translate it into different languages and so forth, so that you have a very wide circulation across the globe, if I can say, because we're talking about globalization of literature in multiple languages and so forth. Many of us, even though our books may be very good in that regional language, from that part of the village or country or district, whatever, state, but beyond that language or even beyond English, it hasn't really gone out. So, a lot of variety, a lot of taste, preferences, wants that people have in terms of the kinds of books and materials they would like to read. So the jury is open on this one in my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, and now this is precisely what I was trying to get at. There seems to be a sort of algorithm here, a mathematical algorithm. A publisher will only select a book that he thinks will sell worldwide, and he knows that a war book will sell, or a famine book, or some kind, some big thing. So is there a danger that literature itself will mathematically move, will change over 20 years because the decisions made by the commercial guys at the top all point in a certain direction? Mami, would you like to add anything to that? Or
well, I
comment on that?
don't know if this is going to be the proper answer to your question, particularly, but that reminds me now one thing. A few years ago, when I was about to write one new book, I was talking to one editor at a big publisher in Japan. And at that time, editor was a woman, and she told me, Yamada-san, can you write a book which can be read in 2 hours? I have never heard this type of, order. I wrote many books already, but she was so serious. And other things she was mentioning was just money type of thing.
What did you reply? Read fast.
Well, I was not fighting over there, but I changed the publisher. Because that's something, because it's a very, personal thing, and it comes from, when a writer is writing something, it's like you're, using your own life, isn't it true? So how can you say, please write a book which can be read in 2 hours? But this type of publishers or editors are, I think, increasing nowadays. That's what I feel. Maybe it's not happening only around me, I don't know. But it happens. So, sorry, my story goes really wide. It goes
No, but that's perfect. That illustrates precisely what we're trying to establish here.
Answer, more question, please.
Well, I was just thinking to myself that soon it'll be artificial intelligence. So that publisher will be commissioning a computer to write, or the computer will be commissioning you. So
computer.
Yes,
Yeah.
because they will know what sells best.
That's right. Exactly.
In terms of translation, do you think seriously, or are you commissioned precisely because the book might sell, because it's won a prize? Is there a lot of that kind of commercial decision making, or do you just, if there's something that grabs your attention that you're kind of interested in, do you translate?
I don't think I would ever choose a book which I think will sell as the main motive for my translation. I would rather, read a lot, find a book which actually sort of moves me. I love it, and I want to share it with other people. And this is both for poetry and for non-poetry. So I'll give you an example. I couldn't give you many examples, but I'll give you an example of a book which I found just maybe 2 weeks back. It's a Hindi book. I was going through lots of contemporary modern Hindi fiction written by women because I was researching topic women and violence in general. So I read this book by a writer called Nilakshi Singh. It's called Hukum Desh Ka Ikka Kota. It's an amazing book. It's a small book of 200 pages. I read it in maybe 2-3 days. And this is the book which I would love to translate. It's an autobiography where she writes about her battle with cancer. And it's framed as an autobiography when the past and present are intertwined. And each chapter is named by name of the month. So you have February and so on. She is battling for 7 months. And then you have subtitles for each section in the chapters, which are called after the games children play. So Ank Michoni and, Leathers and Snakes and things like that. It's a beautiful book. It's so self-aware, and you can see that she's aware of the craft. She's writing another Hindi book, Khela, which came before that. So we have inputs into that. It's a book which I loved, So I don't know about the commercial success, but I would love to translate it into English and into Polish. It's a new book just published last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I know we're running out of time because there's something starting. How much longer have we got? Or should we wrap up? 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay, just a very, very quick question here. As things get more globalized, is there a danger of literature becoming generic? In other words, one size fits all. So, as I said earlier, you want literature to fit every single culture, every single civilization. Is there any danger of this, do you think?
It's already happening, no? In part, it's already happening. The kind of literature that is massive consumed all over the world is very stereotyped right now, no? And you will see mythological literature and medieval literature and Game of Thrones. The kind of literature people read today, it's already like you say. I only want to say that. And one thing we should, I think, be also very conscious is how we are going to read in the future. Because I think we'll keep reading. That's no doubt about that, because we are reading beings, and talking beings. But how we will read? Through a mobile, audiobook, the ways of reading have changed. And I always say that the Gutenberg era has finished. Gutenberg era began with the discovery of the printing press. And I always say the Gutenberg era ended, I think it was the 8th of January of 2007. What happened that day? Steve Jobs presented the smartphone. And that changed completely the way we are approaching text. And let's see what goes.
Okay, just before we wrap up, is there any question in the audience? Oh my goodness. Please, just stand up and say very quickly.
My name is Vilaksh. about writing a book in 2 hours got me to thinking. Obviously, as we are going towards global literature, people are in use of consuming knowledge at a faster rate. But owing to the fact that we are restricted to citing books, are you, because you are the prominent personalities in your field, are you experiencing or are you on your way or a verge to find a new format of writing or a format of writing which helps people consume knowledge more faster, which is more effective also than the visual literary ways?
Yes. But why we should consume more faster? I would prefer to go slower. Because what you learn, there is, the quicker you memorize something, the quicker you forget it. So it's good to read and reread and go slow consuming, in my opinion.
Exactly. You don't have to, be fast in reading. But at the same time, one thing which I have experienced, I did my PhD very late in my lifetime. I was over 45, something like that. But at that time, I learned from the beginning how to write a good thesis. And I have learned so much. So maybe if I try to do it, I can write a book which can be read quicker. Yeah, it's a technical thing. But it depends. I can do it, but I will do it only when the theme is suitable. I never do it for novel, for example. So we have to be very careful about it. We have to choose and,
Write a book in 5 years, which can be later read in 2 hours.
Exactly.
And on that note, thank you very much. You've been a great audience, and I'll leave
one last
you to wrap
question,
up.
I
Oh,
think.
there's one more.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
one more.
That's last question.
The last book you mentioned, it's written in Hindi, has the titles of months. What's the name of that book?
The writer is Nilakshi Singh, and Hukum Desh, it's like a metaphor from the cards, na? Hukum Desh ka ikka kota. Kota, I cannot pronounce it properly. It's false, yeah. So basically what it means, she's saying, I've been dealt a bad card, So I'm battling with cancer, So it's a beautiful title. I don't know how to render it in English, Hukum Desh ka ikka kota. Yeah, got it? Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was a wonderful session, and I hope the audience has enjoyed this session. And, yeah.
I want to take one photo.
And just after the photograph, we have the felicitation ceremony. And for that, I would like to invite Shri Nivas Rao, Secretary Sahitya Academy. Shri Nivas Rao, sir. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Yeah, I will send everyone.
We'll have a group photograph just after this. We all will stand here and have a group photograph.
Thank you all. You're a great audience.
If you wish, you can also join for the photograph, group photograph.
We could have gone on.
So we can have a group photograph. And any one of you, if you want to join, you can be here or come along.
Please come.
Yeah. Please come if you want to join for the photograph. Yeah.
Come to the front. Please come. Sit on the table.
I hope you will talk a little bit.
No.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. When he mentioned, I could see the whole family.